This meeting is being recorded.
Right, the time now is 7 minutes past 9 in the morning on the Thursday, the 21st of July in Greece. So that will be 8 minutes past 9 actually now. So 8 minutes past 6 and Thursday, the 21st of July in New Zealand. And this is the Confederation of United Tribes, New Zealand jurisdiction, King's Bench Court hearing. So over to you, John.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Hi, everybody around the country, especially New Zealand at the moment, because we've got two cases on tonight. We've got one for Gerard Bogard. He's a friend of Cecile Hoods. She's our administrator, manager for the business and for the New Zealand business companies. So she wanted to do this case because it's a hapu-based one. She's got a hapu, and he's come under, with his business, come under the hapu. So they're being registered for some time now. And so I thought I'd put it in just to get her going. And it should have waited, but I'll put it in. I'll try and be as fast as I can, because we've got the other one, the main one with Jacinda, and her government as treason, and the Pope comes in the middle of it with his higher law that we're applying here or enforcing in this court hearing tonight. So the court is open for business now. So hi to Gregory and Kate Baker and Kin Chan and anybody else that's going to come on. But I can't tag anybody to because I got blocked from Facebook, and I wrote to them and they let me off about 6 hours. I was blocked for 6 hours, and that was a disaster because I thought I might be blocked for longer, and I didn't afford to be blocked if I got controversial stuff that I'm posting or tag somebody else that might get me into trouble. So that's the reason why I can't tag too many people now, what I used to, or post too much. If you post too much, they'll block you as well. So that's a problem we don't want to get into at this stage. So the court tonight is for Gregory Bogard versus the Primary Industries for his business with his chicken farm. It's been there, I know it's been there for years. And so we'll go through that now and try and get through that as quick as we can so we can get on to the other one. So I'm the judge and prosecutor and jury with us on this case. The court minutes is the video, the affidavit. And so after reading the email and all the offences, all their information, I made a determination as the Maui Crown, because they were going to go straight into the government by themselves, and it would be hard. I think they've been trying in the courts, and it costs too much to put a case through. So they thought they'll put it through here. So their claim for the amount of money they're claiming, we're putting it under the Maui Crown, and they get paid out from the Maui Crown business only on successful case of recovery of debt from the Crown itself that we're going up against. So that's on we're on page 5. You can scroll around. I'll just read off mine and I'll catch up to where you are. So I'm on page 5. After reading all their documents and everything, it's supposed to be confidential, but I told them all our cases are out in the open and there's nothing I can hide or do about it. And so they've accepted the fact that we've disclosed a lot of their confidential information, because this is the only way that I know to let everybody know, and as many witnesses as possible for that to help that case and them. So the cases and charge accuse corporate criminals, Crown, agent, judgment debtors for these fraud offences and made writs of property arrest, control and seizure, possession, court contract orders for sheriffs and debt collectors to liquidate their bank accounts, life assets, property investments forfeited to the Maori Crown King William IV Trust and bankrupt them all as a consequence of breaking Pope Francis multi propria law orders and the Maori Crown God's pure law and truths affidavits and King William IV Admiralty laws, man's law of Westminster Parliament 1688 to 1837. So any law between there and those laws I just said, those are all the ones with any fraud is complicit with the fraud of the government. We're talking about New Zealand here, cases for now. And so they get charged with all the affidavits of those videos. I think we've done about 8 or 9 now, Andy. So all those affidavits go into this one video here, affidavit of truth against the government. And you'll see when we come up against Jacinda Ardern, how much she's pushing our country into takeover as treason. So there, it's a serious matter. So the Maori Crown King William IV Trust shall credit the claimants named as Gerard Francis van den Bogard and Here Ngā Tera Kamai Collective and Crown with Body Corp the amount of 15 million New Zealand dollars, 15,500,000 New Zealand dollars fee. They're charging a fee. This is what people do when they a lot. I know that that's how they do their cases. They put a fee against anything that they're going to get from the normal courts, and I haven't seen a successful one yet with high figures. So we are in a court of high figures, over $1 million, which we have to try and make this work with Cook Street first, and then this one, whichever one comes up first. So it's just the same procedure of the Crown corporate people, individual named people. Property includes all property, fixed, movable, intellectual, electrical equipment, and communication equipment subject to the pound note liquidation of convicted criminals' debt recovered by the court orders successfully deducted from the Maui pound note debt instruments. So it comes under the jurisdiction of our court tonight as a native magistrate King's Bench court making these orders. For the offence was for the trespass on property of Crown with Body Corp. That's what they call themselves in lingo, in legalese form of against the corporates. So it was really doing the opposite to what we do. And so we just absorbed the whole thing as it is, as they put it, and then make it out from there. Property includes all property, fixed, movable, intellectual, electronic equipment, and communication equipment. So they've seized everything and all their other property on the property. The Maori Crown King William IV Trust shall credit, I said that already, for the invasion, this is a second offence, is for the invasion. The first one I said, the second offence was for the invasion, trespass on the property of Crown with Body Corp, and they're charging more again, another 15,500,000 fee. So that's what they call it, a fee. We call it a charge, a debtor, judgment debtor against whoever they offended this person. Object to presumption. Gerard Bogard is objecting to the presumption of consent. He didn't give them consent to come on the land. He had all these trespass notices and all those things that sovereign people put up, but the government and the police just ignore it. So this is a test against that, where Hapu is concerned with using the flag and everything else to see if that works, and I haven't seen a successful one yet. So Gerard Francis van den Bogard, so we said that already. He's an internationally recognized proclaimed sovereign association aligned and in collective capacity with the proclaimed Hapu authority. Te Hapu or Hoani Haora Hoani or New Tireni. That's the name of their hapu. So there, that's what we're, and the offence is against Honourable Damien O'Connor, convicted, prosecuted, and charged against Crown frauds. We're dealing with it as a Crown fraud against the Maui Crown. Minister of Agriculture for Biosecurity and Rural Communities, Ministry of Primary Industries, Charles Ferguson Building, 3438 Bowden Street, Pipitea, Wellington, New Zealand. And then the second person, the Crown versus Maui Crown versus Honourable Meka Whaitiri, convicted the same offence again for fraud, and Minister of Food Safety, Associate Minister of Agriculture and Animal Welfare, Ministry of Primary Industries, Charles Ferguson Building, Wellington. And Maui Crown versus Cody Taylor, convicted again, the same offence for fraud, basically fraud, and coming onto property. Compliance investigator, Primary Industries, Auckland, 17 Morris Wilson Avenue, Mangere, Auckland. So that's his details. And then again, the Maui Crown versus Andrew Costa, and fraud, Commissioner of Police. So she's convicting the police. We can only convict police or anybody once. This is why I wanted the Crown to convict anybody in the government, employed by the government, only once. That's all you're allowed to convict one person at a time. So that's the law. Maui Crown versus David Fryer, same fraud. National Identification and Tracing Officer, Ministry of Primary Industries, Ruakura Research Centre, Hamilton. So another one, Maui Crown versus Bianca Upton, convicted, the same fraud, duly appointed inspector, Ministry of Primary Industries, Ruakura, Hamilton. So that's the end of that lot of people that are convicted. Same as Cook Street, we'll be doing the same thing. When we pick them off one by one, they'll follow the same pattern as this of court hearings when we get a successful one through. So you pick them out one by one. Gary is part of Herenga Te Raka, my internationally recognized proclaimed sovereign association, aligned with a collective capacity with proclaimed Hapu authority. We said that already. So there's some more things. These are all to read for public. It's on Facebook now already. Public notice, private. This is not a public communication. That's what they wanted, but we've made it public, and that was the deal. The deal is to make things public so that everybody knows. So we go past there. Those are the things to notify everybody that is confidential, no more. When it's on a Maui Crown, it's confidential, no more. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference and his privacy, family, home, and correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has a right to protection of the law against such interference or attacks. This goes for everybody else in the same situation, fighting the law, and the law always comes out winning. So there, we've gone past there. We've gone past for the trespass. And from Maui Crown, Confederation of Chiefs, United Tribes of New Zealand and the World, and Britain, UK, Commercial Contract Partnership Business, Maui Powerhouse Bank, Maui Powerhouse Group, Westminster City, England, Britain, UK. So we've gone through that case. Court is prosecuting the cases against the valuation of each corporate Crown agent person and or their natural name and surname, live woman, man, child, or for 1 trillion British pounds and the Maui pound note equivalent value or higher. Our pound note can vary in value as we go along and succeed in cases against the birth certificate bond held by the Pope, Vatican City Trust account under motu proprio orders to charge these 5 convicted named criminal fraudsters complicit with Jacinda Ardern's treason default war case today against her and her corrupt private corporation government business and against New Zealand Crown and British Crown Corporation's trust account, City of London Rothschild Bank of England and Queen Victoria Trust, a further £1 trillion against these Rothschild Bank and trust accounts for debts against these live criminal fraudsters acting as fraudulent Crown agents. So the £1 trillion goes against the Pope's trust and our birth certificate bonds, and £1 trillion goes against the City of London, that trust, the Queen Victoria Trust, and any other trust that comes under the Crown corporations in London. So there, twice on the same person. We don't care about the figures so much as getting a case done successfully. The court fees are calculated on these debt collection company guidelines in England and Wales. So that's more for reading there. The court opts for 10% of the value recovered debts of your claim in New Zealand dollars against the Great British pound note and my pound note equivalent value or higher, as the court sees fit to adjust the my pound notes value mortgage liens. Now, mortgage liens set against the missing gold equity, whichever is the highest value recovered funds, and in your case, 3.1 million. Oh, hang on. The wind blows it open. Set against the missing gold equity, whichever is highest value, recovered funds, and in your case, New Zealand dollars, it values out 3.1 million to recover 31 million, which is what the Bogart, Gerard Bogart, is claiming in New Zealand dollars against the pound note British. That's its equivalent. So the fee is 3.1 million. Just to be straight up, that we're making that public and letting the government knows our fees are very high for any offence, and so that's the law now. We make that law stick, and we'll go by that. I've had a good read of the lawyers and debt recovery's latest figures in Britain. We only go on the British debt recovery company's figures as a precedent case to use in these documents to make claims against this Crown government here. End of court hearing, contract agreement. So this is the end of it. That goes to Gregory and the debt collector, Graham Aylett. I've just got to get in touch with him again and see. Well, we've got to get a case that looks good enough for him to accept again, because he's an ex-Scotland Yard and he's got all the documents already for Cook Street, and they look fine to him. And it was just the land title to finish that off. So that's date 21st of July 2022 today, finished. And so we can close that one off for now and send that off to the government and those people. I'll leave that to Gregory and Cecile. Cecile will notify them that of this court hearing about what we just did and put through just now. So we're charging them as complicit in the fraud as default contract. That's a default contract. We only deal in default contracts on this court, and no negotiation. It's a done deal because it's been too long on the Cook Street case that we're going under, and that's where we go to. So now we've closed that one and go on to the next one, which is Jacinda Ardern. This is a real McCoy. This one of the government's. I've read all the what's there on here to understand the inconsistencies and the Declaration of Inconsistencies Amendment Act, and their way of doing martial law to lock us down and seize everything from us and go over the law, the normal law. If they got martial law, I want to put them on notice, the government on notice, that we're using motu propria, which is the birth certificate, sovereign, not the government sovereign in Wellington, New Zealand. They haven't got our sovereign. The only pretend government that's making their documents look like they have our sovereign. No, they don't have our sovereign. The Pope has our sovereign, bonds, trust. So there, they have nothing. The government here has no entrenched constitution for a start. That's one, and they have no legitimate sovereignty over us to make laws on us, to create laws. And I've got these marked out. I've got them marked out in those counts. I've pulled them out, and we'll go over those on the way through. This is the main case of Jacinda Kate Laurel Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand, that were prosecuted already for fraud and treason against us, the sovereigns of the land and the landowners. This is the part that we have to distinguish between their law in the government and our law that we enforce in this court, because later on you'll see that the Pope has let international people like ourselves decide on what law to use against anybody that's causing fraud. And so we'll come to those later on as we go through. So I've marked, hang on, where am I? I'll go to 1, 2, 3, 4, not that one. Page 2. I'll start at page 2. You'll see some of the things in red and in blue. Oh, why is this one hasn't got, hang on. Is your one colored, Andy? Is your, what's page 2 there? I think I picked up the wrong one.
Yeah.
It should be a highlight. Oh, that one's in blue. Yeah, that's the one. You got the right one.
Did you email that to me, John?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I've emailed it to everybody.
Yeah. I'll
At what point do you want to start, John?
I want to start on page 2.
Yeah. Okay.
Read the creditors. Hang on.
This is the top of
one.
page 2.
Yeah, hang on. I'll just get my page 2. It's not in blue. My one is not in blue. Why is I picked the wrong one up.
You can go off my screen if you want, John.
Yeah, I'll go off your screen. You just roll it up.
Yeah. You tell me.
Then I had my one already. So carry on going. Just go where the blue marks are and the red marks.
Okay.
Just scroll along till you come to the blue marks and the red marks. What page is that?
This is page 3.
Oh,
blue
we've gone
stuff,
past
blue.
already. Hang on. Why haven't you got the ones with the red marks? The blue. Oh, that's got blue marks. Right. Now, which page? Go back to page 2. Go. Is that page 2?
This is 2, yeah.
That's page 2. Gosh, I've got. That's page 2. Keep going. Keep going. That's page 2.
Now we're on to page 3.
Page. Oh man. Okay. Well, we'll start from here where that blue is. The Native Magistrate King's Bench Court is now open for commercial bank trading default contract business in New Zealand, Britain, UK, and the world. I have jurisdiction over this court flag of King William IV and its Admiral of the Fleet Land, legal land bank law instruments. I have legal admiralty law of the sea, Admiral of the Fleet, as Lord High Admiral John Hoanikaki Wanoa. So we can leave it. We've done this before. We've been through that before. So we can carry on going through here, stop here. Thursday, 21st of July, recording today at 6 p.m. Host Andy Devine for this court hearing for Jacinda Ardern. Carry on going. we've been through this part. Hang on, here citations. Oh, hang on, I better read this one. The court shall charge each corporate crown agent for fraud and corruption of the judicial law system, meaning one proven fraud is the same fraud complicit in Rothschild Bank, Queen Victoria, and Queen Elizabeth Crown Corporation's fraud charge against all private and public corporations, live persons in flesh and blood, DNA, in New Zealand, Britain, and other state countries that were set up under Britain, UK Crown of Westminster Parliament, Admiralty Law of the Sea and Dry Land, Mortgage Lien, Lease Bank, Debt Instruments on each named photographed convicted, prosecuted, elite, non-elite, default, contract, pirate, criminal, charged 1 trillion British pound note debt instruments of value set against the criminal's birth certificate, bonds, assets, business, land, property, and the balance owed by the British and New Zealand Crown counts asset, gold, land, business. These entities pay for their share in the fraud land transactions, mortgage bank instruments, including property developers, lawyers, judges, public servants, bank managers, business CEOs, and anyone connected to New Zealand government, crown, public and private corporations, with Jacinda Ardern and her government and Governor General Cindy Kiro complicit in these fraud, corrupt private and public business, prosecuted, convicted and charged under the counts and citations here in motu proprio orders, highest corporation laws and trusts in the world. So carry on, just scroll up. The same debt charge goes against the Crown agents, New Zealand and Crown UK and our Queen Victoria Trust accounts. So we're charging the Pope's accounts and the Queen Victoria account, same fraud, private and public corporations prosecuted under motu proprio. We're going mostly under motu proprio, highest law in the global world, with King William III and King William George III, King George IV, King William IV, King Ernest Augustus I, Admiralty Law of the Sea, and King William IV, 1834 flag Constitution, 1835 Constitution and jurisdiction of Westminster Parliament, Westminster City, England, Britain, UK, meaning that each named corporate crown agent in New Zealand shall be cited by motu proprio orders of Pope Francis and prosecuted, convicted and charged by these 5 kings named above under Admiralty Law of the Sea and on the Land, 1689 to 1837 Acts of Westminster Parliament and US federal state laws of US Congress. We're using the US Congress at the same time. President Biden and Washington, D.C., United States of America, Vice Admiral, inferior jurisdictions to the 5 kings and Confederation, King William IV, 1834, Dutch founding flag of New Zealand as a British Protestant Church of England country. So we're using the flag in that document there to prosecute people with its power. Therefore, my Crown charge each of these convicted criminals today, Thursday, 21st of July, 2022, 1 trillion British pounds under King William III, King George III, King George IV, King William IV, King Ernest Augustus I, Admiralty Law of the Sea. I said that before. Complicit in this fraud. So there, I've just repeated myself without knowing it. So judge and prosecutor, that's who I am, John Wanoa, and jury here with court minutes, video, documents, affidavits. So that's what I need to do there. I better say this one. After endless notices to you, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, with so many letters I've sent to you and notices of what we intend to do, now we're doing the real thing. I accuse you of your continuous offences after Pope Francis warned you in September 2013 that you and your preceding governments were given 3 years to clean up your corrupt fraud business. You made no attempt to adhere to Pope Francis' orders and continue to break his highest corporation and trust laws that all corporations are now liable the same charges as you committed as complicit in your leading your WEF, World Economic Forum, fraud government of New Zealand right through the country. List at the end of the documents of 90 counts of motu proprio enforced on you with the debt amount of charges against you Jacinda Laurel Ardern, natural name. So I put this big figure, 1 million trillion. That's a figure. Great Britain pounds. They can sort it out. That lot, but that's our figure. My pound notes forfeiture of all you possess and property, bank account, business, land, investments, seized value balance by your New Zealand, UK Crown assets. As judge and prosecutor and surrogate king sovereign, I make a determination as my Crown and my Powerhouse Bank judgment creditor to prosecute you and other Crown agents as judgment debtors and charge you accused corporate criminals for the string of offences and made writs of execution of property arrest, control and seizure possession, court default debt contract orders for New Zealand, UK sheriffs and debt collectors to seize and liquidate your bank accounts, life assets, property investments forfeited to the Noya Crown, King William IV Trust banks, and bankrupt you and individually named photograph Crown agent criminals as a consequence of breaking Pope Francis 2013 motu proprio orders and breaking my Crown God's pure law of truth affidavits. The affidavits is the main thing here that I'm stressing, that they have not refuted them. They become law, and we're expressing this law, and the Pope saying you have to use your own way of getting laws to protect yourself or use against anybody causing fraud. We're proving that there's fraud happening in the government and treason. And King William IV Admiralty Laws of Westminster Parliament 1689 to 1837, Britain, UK, and broke Pope Francis motu proprio orders we use against your person. So there, we'll carry on going. This is all, we can scroll for this. I'm not going to read it anymore because there's enough there. I want to carry on going through. These are just some of the things. Keep going, keep going. Those are all, we've gone through that before. Just stop at the red ones, proclamation, declaration orders, my Crown Court orders enforced today by default contract, 26th of May 2022. That's when we made all of this. So we can go straight past all these counts because we're going to pick them off at the end against her singly. Adopt adequate. No, carry on going. I put all these things. Just stop. Just in the Ardern. Okay, we find that you're guilty of treason and fraud and found to be a threat to our country and sovereign people of New Zealand who are injured from your CVD jabs. I won't say the right word. On innocent people dying from poisoning their bodies and calling it a pandemic. It's the pandemic that's being man-made that we're proving here in what I put at the end, and we'll go through that and try and skip through all this lot to get to the end bit where all those pandemic things are. Just hang on. You and your criminals invented the killing people throughout the world. We find you are causing harm, loss, and injury to the people who can't fight you except the higher law of Pope Francis motu proprio orders. We enforce against you, murderers and pirates in Parliament. Now, once you all dissolved and shut down before you declare illegal martial law, state of emergency, War Powers Act on our countries while we are sovereigns to Pope Francis' higher power, he says for us to choose adequate laws to protect ourselves from your unruly thugs who have no entrenched constitution as we have an 1835 Declaration of Independence, flag of Admiralty, constitutional laws we created against you on our sovereign's lands and build that charge you personally for your leading part of conspiring to mass murder and VAXD people left to die and get away with paying them what we are claiming for their trust money, wealth, legal inheritance with these writ of execution warrants from our native magistrate King's Court today, made public on social media as notice to you, the Crown agent, to the principal, the Confederation of Chiefs, and myself, the prosecutor and judge of this legal court. So you shall be arrested by law enforcement, military, police, sheriffs with these court orders. So just move on. This is just to her. One video, many documents to an individual case is treated as one affidavit. That's how it works. All the information in here is one affidavit. So you can pick anywhere to go in between everything that's on 128 pages. Keep going. This is all the coronavirus stuff. I've got them marked out where you stop. Our charges, those are the debt collectors, that recover money, and their charges. That's where we get their charges from in England. That's the debt collectors fees. And here, default contract of debt. That's what they call it, default contract of debt. That's the terminology for the debt collectors. Declaration of war on you. We're declaring war on her, and she's declaring war on us. And Jacinda Ardern and your New Zealand government, parliament, court committing treason. Kate Laurel Ardern, Aka, Jacinda Ardern for treason against the people of New Zealand. So there you go. And we can go through this. Keep going. Private person, business person. We've been through this before, Andy. We did this before. So we can put the other things in, the other videos to back this one up. Well, to you, Jacinda Kate Laurel, the living, breathing woman and individual in your private capacity, we hold you and your living, breathing ministers and New Zealand Crown agents singly liable for breaching these acts and other acts within herein reported to the Commonwealth Secretary General. That was that woman, Scotland, that I wrote to and got no answer from her, Patricia Scotland. So we are the sovereign crown principal, joined to the crown principal of England over this country of New Zealand and its outer islands dependencies. So carry on going, skip down, keep going. We've been through all this before. So keep going. Those are all the claims that we cite. But I'm concerned about motu proprio and the martial law bit at the end. So that's all the trust. We're using this trust, all these citations, and the trust straight to the trust with the Pope. We override the government sovereignty, parliamentary sovereignty, with the Pope's sovereignty. I want to make that point clear. Those in a court case, if we had to go to the High Court in London or England, London, that's Jacinda, that she received. Well, hang on, received the email notice. Default contract created by levy debtors, Vatican City, City of London, Washington DC, Crown, private companies, and all corporations throughout the world in 250 countries. So carry on. Those accounts, we've been through the accounts. That's the end of that bit. Elizabeth, Treasury, fraud, Canada, Australia, and government fraud, Bank of England fraud, UN fraud, IMF fraud, Crown fraud, US fraud. Carry on. This is for the sheriff's information of picking this up and getting a head around it. This is where we're coming to the Pope. So these are his counts. I think I doubled up a couple of them, but anyway, they're there. So we can skip through all this because they're at the end. These are the list of all the 90 counts. So we can go straight past that lot and pick them out, the ones, they all apply to this case against Jacinda, but I picked out the ones that really matter out of the whole lot of them. And so we'll come out to those at the end and then carry on, God. Carry on, pass. That's 90 to go. All those counts are in this case against her, but I've specifically got the right ones out. Keep going. Oh, slow down. No, keep going. Keep going past all this lot. Keep going. These are for the case of Maungatautari. Just slow down and carry on going. This is the case for the Te Waikato Wharehere Manukau and King George IV's title, rock, at Arapuni, Cambridge. Declaration of War Emergency Third Party Crown Bank Financial Fraud. Carry on going. These are citations that we can pick on at any time on the page numbers. Cited criminal acts. Yeah, carry on. Skip over that lot. All those citations are there to refer to on the case of the government, where they get their authority from, and the tribes they set up. Ngāti Whātua tribe and the Tainui tribes, with these memorials on One Tree Hill, Auckland, and on Mogan Mountain to Britain titles, the British titles. They overrode them, so we're going to override their titles with these titles to dissolve their titles back. Whoa, got to stop here. Emergency War Powers Act, contract of debt, that's its term, Admiralty and maritime law as applied to these corporate fraud crown agent cases of name, photo, identified criminals under the acts listed here, and UCC law, motor property law, Vatican law, and my crown law. Those are the laws we're using in these cases. Carry on. we go past here. Those are the apostolate and everything else that's with the Vatican. So he's the highest law in the world of corporations and trusts. So that's where the money is, right there. That this government is, they're subjected to the Pope's laws. To be quite honest, this is just the Manukau claim, the British claim. Carry on going. Now there's, just stop here. This is Maungatautari Mountain, past side, where the British King George IV made the contract. They always have to have memorials to the land, and then they picked this rock here beside the marae, the Punga Punga marae, which is the original marae they call Pohara marae. Now they changed the name. The Pohara means poor. They shouldn't be poor. They should be rich with that rock, and the British and these trusts, not poor. So we're going to reverse all that lot with these laws. And that's Maungatautari Mountain there, where his past site was right up the top. And so they put a marae right at the bottom, that marae, and took over the title of Maungatautari. We're taking it right back off them with these documents, with these legal documents, and put it back where it was on the title to the mortgage lien documents over the land. They're just pieces of paper that where the Admiralty gets its jurisdiction from Westminster to put a lien over the land, and they have to have a memorial on every document that's got a land transfer on it. And that's they got the Crown here in Wellington have got a moai on the beach in Wellington as their title to their document to the land, and they've got a obelisk at Te Tii Marae as their title to the whole of New Zealand. Those two, that moai down on the beach for the foreshore and seabed and the Pacific Ocean, and that one up at Waitangi, Te Tii Marae, as their land title to the whole of New Zealand. So we go right over the top of them with a real moai in Dunedin with a crown on his head, a hat on his head. That's the only one that's got a crown on his head. That's the real crown. That's our title to this whole country on the British titles, on the British title. Queen Elizabeth II put that one there for her title to the whole country. It doesn't belong to her. She stole it. So anything that's a thief in front of God's law, L-O-R-E, that's a Moai law is L-O-R-E on Easter Island, that's God's navel for this whole planet, birth of this country, and birth of this world, is like the Pope is saying. He's got the birth certificate. That's where the value is in anything that's been birthed through temple, and that other word they call for his titles to your body, to your soul, to everything you are made of. So there we can go past there, and that's a specific title we are claiming on this whole country with this flag. And these are the offences. We've been through this, Andy, on a past video affidavit. So there we can just scroll past it. I'll stop here. New South Wales and New Zealand iwi Maori Crown Ngāti Whātua corrupted the whakapapa of Paramount Chief Te Waikato Wharehere Manukau of his hapu punga punga marae and his mangatautari pāsai. His name, Te Waikato, is used in this fraud manufactured whakapapa by his Ngāti Whātua iwi Maori Crown Corporation as a woman and a wife of Mahanga, first husband and second husband repeal for the fabricated iwi 1840 Treaty of Waitangi Native Title CT land title cap. The government in Wellington did that.
I want to confirm that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got confirmation on that because that's the same whakapapa that was given to my dad and that he gave me about 40 years ago, and it confirms what John Wanoa has just stated.
Yeah. So
for the record.
Yeah. So it's just a certificate.
Yeah.
It's just a certificate for the land titles, the actual instrument, legal instrument, that we have to correct that because the government of Wellington and the iwi Maori pirates manufactured it to switch the paramount chief and turn it into a woman. And I've identified this with the chief Mohi Manukau at the time we put this all together on investigating surnames. And it's a question that they have to answer. Where is the Waikato surname, whakapapa, to Waikato River and everything Waikato connected to the Manukau, old individual indigenous surnames. So the surnames does matter, created to defraud the paramount chiefs and citizens of New Zealand using stolen identity male line dominant paramount chief here below to identify the Waikato bloodline whakapapa to the Manukau ancestor land they occupy under the British land transfer title documents that don't match up with this whakapapa discussed in this court hearing today, Thursday, 21st of July, 2022. I have issues with the authenticity of this New Zealand iwi Maori corporation, whakapapa, to a woman and wife called Te Waikato surname, cut off from the paramount chief Te Waikato Wharehere Manukau. So there, we are identifying New Zealand as a fraudulent title. That's fraud. The problem I have here with this whakapapa is where does the surname Waikato family name show its title to Mangatautari Mountain and Punga Punga Hapu and their Punga Punga Marae, and what is the ancestral memorial of the female Te Waikato to Waikato titles. So Hone Mason, he's very disappointed in that, and he's searching it out to see how authentic it is. So we can leave that to him and Alfred to sort that lot out, to get the record straight so that we can get them out of the way and the hapu back in. So there, swap the iwi for the hapu. So those are the manufactured whakapapa. When you look at the Manukau one later, is an old type whakapapa that I put on here, the one I was going to give Alfred. I can't find the damn thing, Alfred. I've got to keep looking for it. I put it somewhere. Yeah. It's in one of them books. I've got to find it. I'm taking these books with me up north. Keep woke. It is difficult to see how Ngāti Whātua Runanga could have claimed an interest in that area of Auckland when they don't have a connection to the original native traditional whakapapa title. So we can roll past there. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Roll. Oh, keep going. Now we've been through. We carry on. We've got to get through the next few pages towards the end. Well, now carry on, guys. Those are that case. Those are Kaipara titles connected to the Manukau titles here in Auckland. Keep going. Those are for another day. We picked them off one by one, Jacinda Ardern, hang on, whoa, Prime Minister of New Zealand is not immune from prosecution and conviction of multiple fraud criminal acts and coercion of harm, loss and injury to innocent law-abiding citizens of New Zealand. And Native Magistrate Court enforced on you today for treason and CVD death threats of UNWEF are supposed to be New World Order takeover of our country without any emergency powers, jurisdictional martial law, illegal lockdowns made by your private corporations now facing the Confederation of Chief Landowner Titles to New Zealand and enforcement of morte propria orders upon you and your government, parliament and governor general. Caught in the act. We've caught them in the act of fraud, corrupted private corporation business here in the following count. So we can skip through the lot now. That's coming up at the end of morte propria. Oh, these are the ones. These are the counts that are picked out of all the counts. I want to just go through them slowly, and there's not many of them out of the whole bunch of 90. The Vatican created the World Trust using the birth certificate to capture the value of each individual's future productive energy. Each state, that's us, the state here, province or country in the fiat money, we're in the fiat money system, contributes their people's value to this World Trust, identified by the SIN and IM numbers. We've been through this before, but I just want to skip over this, count 2. We'll go to count 2. Morte propria is the highest form of legal instrument on the planet in accordance to its provenance and influence and structure of Western Roman world. So carry on. Overriding anything that could be issued by the United Nations. This goes against the United Nations, and we're Jacinda's going to the United Nations. We're going right above them with this law on these split out counts of morte propria, the inner and Middle Temple and Crown of Great Britain and other monarchs, and indeed by count 8, any head of state or body politic. If you are a member of the United Nations or recognized of the United States of the United Kingdom or anyone holding office. Thirdly, we see the whole Holy See. Keep going until they are torn from power by anyone. We're tearing them out of power. Jacinda Ardern and her government, we are tearing them and taking their power from them. Anybody who cares, we care for the law. That's why we are allowed to make law to combat terrorism or fraud or treason and people misbehaving in government and making their own laws up for themselves, not for anybody's benefit. The Holy See is underpinning the whole global system. Global, see, it's global of law. Therefore, anyone holding office, that's the government, and anywhere in the world, that means here, is also subject to these limits, and that immunity of government and Jacinda Ardern no longer applies. She can't go against this immunity. She's not immune from prosecution from this court. That's what that one, count 19. We just mark that one up against her, that she has no right of getting out of this one. In our times, the common good is increasingly threatened. We're threatened, threatened that word, by transitional organized crime. They are an organized crime, people. They are crime, organized mafia gang operating on our land, and we are using this count against Jacinda Ardern and her KVD, our organized crime, to rid everybody and exterminate all of us and take our powers off and come in our house and seize everything with a martial law that they have no power against us to legislate in their parliament right now with this law, let alone any other law. So I'm sticking by this, and the trust and our values worth tied up in the Pope. Necessary for international, this is the one here. This is the main one here. I want to read it out and stress it. It is therefore necessary for the international community to adopt adequate legal instruments to prevent and counter criminal activities by promoting international judicial cooperation on criminal matters. We're dealing with criminals. This is a criminal matter that this one here is pulled out right in front of Jacinda Ardern and stuck right on her name. There, right there, and halt her and take the power off her with this one. So there, it says here to adopt the community, which is us, to adopt, which what we're doing here with our laws. We're picking the laws we want. And I thought about this in 2015. I put this together in 2015 for those marshals to take Cook Street right on this thing here and adopt adequate. That's why I put the laws together with the motu proprio, then doing it again. And this will win cases. This will win cases hands down. Adopt adequate legal instruments. We have legal instruments here, right here in front of us, to prevent counter criminal activities. So we're stopping them. That's what prevention means. Stop Jacinda in her tracks with this law. One piece of law here. See? So that's how we do it. Legally. We do it, everything legally. There's no other way to do it other than legally. So this next one, those persons who serve as representatives, managers, directors, as well as persons who even de facto manage or exercise control over the entities, that's us, we are entities, directly dependent on the Holy See. Those are the churches that do the laws in government and use the Vatican's temporal and spiritual um, uh, uh, control mechanisms to step the Vatican's authority over Westminster and stick his church laws right over the top of the Westminster law and listed in the registry. That's our birth names on the canonical juridical persons kept. That's us persons in his canonical registry kept by the governor. That's his governorate of the Vatican City State. That state to our state here. That's our entity there, locked up in our sovereignty there with our value that we're claiming back £1 trillion value from the Pope. He's a crook too. So there, we're using his law against him and all the rest of them, thugs and pirates. So there, we use his law against all of his churches and everybody screwing everybody out. Any count 39, any other person holding administrative or judicial mandate in the Holy See, permanent or temporary, paid or unpaid, in respect of the person's seniority. So it means everybody. Okay, we can go these. Just if you read them yourself, this is what we're applying directly to Jacinda Ardern. Just these ones I picked out of 90 that makes sense. When the same matters are prosecuted in other states, which is this state, the provisions in force in the Vatican City State on concurrent jurisdiction shall apply. That means apply here in every other state outside the Vatican State. So we're still under his control. So count 44, I established that this apologetic letter issued motu proprio will be promulgated by its publication O Votori Romano entering into force 1st of September 2013. So they had 3 years to clean up their act in corporations, but they're still doing it. So we got all the power to go them everything, every corporation, every business, every company, every landowner, every property developer that has made money from these fraud instruments of the government here. We can check all their titles.
They're nearly 6 years at a time.
Hey?
They're nearly 6 years at a time because the 3 years was September 2016.
Yeah.
So they're nearly 6 years at a time. They haven't done anything.
Yeah, they haven't done
so
anything.
They had 9 years and they still haven't done
anything. So there, we're taking direct action from this court as the size of it that matters, and everybody has to catch up sooner or later. The cookie crumbles and the penny drops. So we go past, I go past here and carry on going, keep going. One part of therefore necessary for, hang on. I've just said the same thing. It's just said the same thing. Again, maintain agreements are effective. Here's another one, 53. In ratifying numerous international conventions, so it's been through all the international places in the United Nations in these areas, and acting also on the behalf of the Vatican City State, the Holy See, which is the churches outside in your area here, has constantly maintained that such agreements are effective means to prevent criminal activities that threaten human dignity and common good and peace. They're threatening us. Jacinda Ardern is just keeps on threatening us with more of these jabs and more coercion and more herding into quarantine, stay in your bubble, stay in your home. All of these things are threatening our dignity. That's us as people. No longer they treat us like animals and piece of dirt. And that's the way I see it, as being threatening our livelihood, our way of living, our natural people being, and inflation and all the other things that put pressure on families and mortgages and all this and house prices and all of these things that's threatening us with paying your bill, otherwise they'll take your property and everything. The competent judicial authorities of Vatican City States shall also exercise penal jurisdiction. So we're applying penal jurisdiction to build them for the threats and harm and loss and injury and fraud and corruption of the judicial system, and us putting pressure on us and families and splitting everybody up, especially families and kids, taking kids away and all those sort of things. This one is the one for that. Penal, put them in prison. We arrest, make an order tonight, to arrest Jacinda Ardern for this part here, for threatening us, like the Pope says. You're all on your own. That's why he said to all the corporations, you're on your own. You go to court, and if anybody used this against you, I think that's how we got off Cook Street, Andy. I think that's how we got off Cook Street, because I quoted motu propria, and I can't see anywhere else they would have dropped the whole case and said nothing, as if nothing happened. See, so there's a reason behind it. I think it's this. I think is what I used in the motu propria in the case when I went to prison, and dropped the whole lot. Yeah, so we're going back to do the same thing again. This time we'll win the case if we know how this works and what the Pope is saying. So he's let everybody know what to do. It's up to you to do it. If you don't do it, they get away with it. So he's giving you all these instruments, legal instruments, to do it, and no one's used them yet. Members and officials of personnel, various organs of the Curia and institutions connected to worldwide. It's worldwide corporations and individuals in trusts. Corporations pursuant to their birth certificate. Birth certificate. There we go. There's your sovereignty there. That's your worth value of every sovereign in New Zealand. I'm talking about New Zealand, not anybody else at the moment in this court case. So anything that happens here on the land is what you should know, that we are valuable people if we claim it. We're claiming all that wealth, and the Pope has been holding all through the world. So if we make an example of it, a case of it, then everybody else will get the same thing as what we're doing. Papal legates that makes law, and diplomatic personnel of the Holy See. Pope governs the church. People trust all the churches. People trust all the trusts in the churches. All the people in the birth trust through the Roman P6 Curia and governing body of the Vatican. So those are the trusts and the birth certificates wrapped up, and the government here got no say. Those persons who serve as representative managers, we've been through that. Right, keep going. I'm reading it as I'm going to pick out the ones I can see. Well, hold. Well, no, hang on, just wait on a minute. When I say matter of prosecuting, I say force. But now go up a bit. No, carry on. Roll up. Keep going. Oh, here we go. I'll read this bit here with this count. I'll read the whole thing. The Vatican created the World Trust using the birth certificate to capture the value of each individual product of energy. Each state, province, country in the fiat money system contributes their people's value to the World Trust, identified in SIN numbers, for example, maintained Vatican registry. Corporations worldwide, individuals became corporate fictions through their birth certificate, are connected to the Vatican through law. Vatican to crown, to bar, to laws, to judge the people. And through money, Vatican birth accounts, value of IMF to Treasury, Federal Reserve to banks, to people, loans to judges, administration and sheriff's confiscation. So that bit there, right there, the confiscation is what we're doing right here. That one gives us the right to put writ warrants to confiscate anything that's causing fraud. So there, take a note of that count 76 as sheriffs. This is your little Bible here of what you enforce, and pick up how to use it, the instrument, and then that should get results from the top end. Judges administer birth trust account matters favoring the court. It's favoring the court. So that favors our court. I'm saying in reverse to those courts, it favors our court much more because we hold title, memorials, we have a flag of federal jurisdiction and constitution in the flag. We've got the right to the land. We've got the sovereign people to go with the flag and the land, and we got a trust, a business trust in the Vatican. So and since they have not properly advised you of the true beneficiary of their own trust, so they haven't told us, the beneficiaries, we're still beneficiaries of the trust of the Vatican and the trust of the Vatican and Rome and the trust in England, in Britain. They haven't told you beneficiaries that we are still infants. We're not infants now. We've come out of it because we know now. We're claiming all this property back that's missing, that we belong to as beneficiaries. So there, that's a good one for you, Gregory, and Kate, to take note of what this means. So there, we have the legal right to seize property from thieves, vagabonds, and pirates on the high sea of Admiralty. So that's Admiralty on top of it, Admiralty and Pope on top of the government. They have no power against this law. Judges, attorneys, bankers, lawmakers, law enforcement, and all public officials, servants are now held personally liable. There, that word person, they're persons liable for their confiscation of the true beneficiaries' homes, cars, money, and assets, false imprisonment, which is what I went through, deception, harassment, and conversion of the true beneficiaries' trust funds. Those belong to us. It still belongs to us that we're going after. We're going after the whole lot, and we're going to use these instruments like this for the first time. Nobody's ever used them, not like this, and split them out like this. So there, that's fact. That's a fact. According to the New Advent Catholic Encyclopedia, and that stands for on his own accord. That means on our own accord to what we think. So we take everything, the law, this law, into our hands. We take the law in our own hands, and we are not above the law. We are the law. So there, we are the crown, we are the law, and that's what matters here in this one. So there, in the second instance, the document relates to the fact that the Holy See is the underpinning to the whole global system of law. So they're going right above the law. Therefore, anyone holding an office anywhere in the world is also subject to these limits, at that immunity no longer applies. So no one can get away from this one. Andy, no one's going to get away. Jacinda Ardern can't get away from this one. So, so this is on this is on her. That one, when in this court hearing tonight, to 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 add to the court hearings we've already had against her personally, in her private capacity as a real live blood sucking individual. So there, she's live birth, live blood, running blood. Therefore, thirdly, we see the Holy See and the Universal Church clearly separating itself. The Holy See and the Church separates itself from the nihilist world of professional elite, to continue to be proven time and time again to be criminally insane, but raving mad, and with no desire to do anything honorable. So they don't care. This is Jacinda Ardern here, right here. Don't care what anybody thinks. They're in a nihilist world. They have a bubble of their own elite people. We're going right up against them with these big trillion-pound notes, and screwed a whole lot of them with law against their law, right? They have an inferior law, Count 87, until they are torn from power by anyone. We are anyone, anybody. We are anybody who cares for the law. There. So that's us. We are those anybodies and anyone of the law. We have the law, this law. So that's all I picked out of that lot, Andy. So these most appropriate for everybody to read, the originals, and I put them up there so people can read them. But all I've done is I've split them all out so that we can number them in I think. So those for reading, to understand them. This one here is the title up north with those kari trees. I did it with Morris Baker and his family at Taheke Marae. I held a native magistrate court hearing, King's Bench court hearings there to claim this title. This is Moira Hoffman, a Russell. She's a Russell from the Russell family. Yeah, so Russell, Moira, she let me stay in her place in Rotorua for some time while I was putting all the titles together. And she gave me her book, her whakapapa book. And it's got everything British in it. And it's got all the whakapapa and everything correct. And that's where I took all my information for what I'm doing, to make sure the British titles were the ones that we're going under, not the New Zealand titles. So there we can these are just information of the Waikato title and the maraes that did court hearings on these maraes. And this is just proof here that at that time of 1831, therein, and dated according to custom of Great Britain, there being no seals or authoritative duly authorized thereto at the present time in this country of New Zealand. So in 1831, there was private land purchases, and at that time of King William the Fourth. So that's just information about titles and issuing British titles. Keep going. That's the guy I want to go against. This guy, he did a lot of damage in the treaty claims. This guy, Chris Finlayson, he's got £1 trillion on his head. This guy here, he stopped us from doing our treaty claims for Mohi Manukau in a lot of ways, and he went with the rogue iwi Maoris and followed their title, their whakapapa, instead of this Mohi Manukau's title, whakapapa. So these are just information here on Referefa Manukau and his land purchase at that time. So that's just going up against our title to this country and split out to go up against Jacinda and her titles, her titles of her Maori Crown government. That they have a Maori Crown government, and those Maoris in the government that are propping her and their business up. So bank interests to manipulate native titles in other indigenous countries, states' wealth through these Moriori Manukau native land title whakapapa stone rock instruments to King George IV. Blueprint, bank, lien, loan, land, mortgage instruments. That's all they are. They are lien, land, lien, loan, mortgage instruments. Blueprint, King William IV, Crown Land Patent Title Transfer, title from Te Waikato Wharehere in Manukau to Rewharewa Manukau by King William IV, 1834 Declaration of War. It's a declaration of war bank flag. That's what this government is using this flag for, war, when it's supposed to stop the war, not start the war and keep a war going. So as long as the iwi marriage up in Waitangi gives the consent to the government in Wellington to use that flag without anybody knowing, they'll carry on their dirty business of war to make money from war. So there, we can skip over this lot and go straight down some more. What's over here? This is joining Boris Johnson and his armed forces and Royal Navy Admiral of the Fleet, Michael Boyce, Lord Baron Boyce, House of Lords, Westminster Parliament, UK. You are our Confederation of Chief Legal Partners in a private contract business entity under the Dutch King George III and his sons King George IV, King William IV, and King Ernest Augustus I, to their direct bloodline heir and successor, King Ernest Augustus V, and I and the Confederation want you both to acknowledge that we are the legitimate beneficiaries of the 1844 Queen Victoria Trust in all our legal documentation, customary native titles and land titles, and whakapapa to the land country of New Zealand, commercial contract with King George IV, proof of claim, federal flag of King William IV. So we're using the flag here to claim back all those titles to the land, every single one of them, and put them back under the British title again and start again. Just what the British did in 1868, thereabout, seized all the titles, the French titles in the South Island. They'll just seize the whole lot again. That's what this court is tonight, is to seize all the titles in this country and dissolve the government in Wellington and shut them down from causing fraud and corruption. So these are the East Coast where I come from. There on this 1830, you can see
John,
here.
John, before we go any further,
Mm-hmm.
when you seize all these titles,
Yeah.
how are we going to?
The British do it.
The British,
Everything's got to go through Britain.
so they will do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can't do it until we get something going.
Okay.
And we got it up here. I'll be going to Britain
Okay. Yeah.
and settled over there to run that business over there to go straight into their banks
Yeah.
and dissolve everything there.
So it'll be the British Admiralty
Yeah,
magistrate court they will do it.
Yeah, the one that I was setting up over there.
Or reissue the new title.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what they did before. We can't do it here. We have to. We're the second party,
Yeah.
and they're the first party to do it. But we can instruct them to do it. the federal, the Confederation can instruct them to do it. So there, we can skip past this. Just so that, well, Republic form of government. We're in a Republican form of government. So Lords spiritual and temporal and commons assembled at Westminster lawfully, fully, and freely representing the estates of the people of this realm. 69 represent the Majesties William and Mary. So that's just more information of commercial connections by prosecutions in the Court of King's Bench. See, so they're just saying the King's Bench does prosecutions, and I've just marked it where we got our authority to have prosecutions in a King's Bench court. So there, those are factual information that we can go back to under Pope's instructions, Lord spiritual and temporal being Protestant. So we're acting under Protestant flag. That's what that is, the Dutch flag. and it's got a lot of power. It's got all this power in it. Commissioner, ecclesiastic clauses, court of commissioners for. We can skip past that. I'll put that there because there's something to do with that as well. And the churches right to title, to any titles, Lord spiritual and temporal. That's your brain and your body, temporal, and Lord spiritual. That's the Vatican's legalese to your everybody's bodies control in legal terms of money. It's all about money and these instruments. So it's all done in the Parliament. The House of Lords have the last say on that, on spiritual temporal. Of the Vatican's got his finger in Westminster. There, right there. We're there, Gregory. 2019 ruling, the courts ruling that prorogation of Parliament was unlawful. We're still saying it's unlawful and illegal tonight in this court hearing. The government is holding off and having lockdowns while they go about their dirty business, and put us in, lock us up in homes, and while they come and search you out and make their job easier of coercing us into forced jabs, which is what they're going to do. That all power of suspending laws or the execution of laws by any authority without consent of the representatives of the people, we're representing the people tonight, is injurious. That's injurious to their rights. The Bill of Rights, they're going straight past the Bill of Rights in this inconsistencies and amendments bill declaration at the moment. It's at the end of this. I'm going straight into that as well to back up what this bit is about injuring us and against our rights. The Human Rights Act and the Bill of Rights Act right here. We can quote this here, ought not to be exercised, asserted the Bill of Rights. 16.
The point here is that the Parliament are assuming parliamentary sovereignty. And,
yeah, so
and there's enough case laws that will say that that especially in the landmark case of what's Chisholm versus State of Georgia in the Supreme U.S. Court, says that when you trace sovereignty to its source, sovereignty resides in man, and parliaments are the subjects of man. You know, so they have to. They may assume their parliamentary sovereignty, but they have to prove it.
yeah.
They have to prove it.
So I'm saying they have no sovereignty over us.
Yeah.
Because the Pope has that.
Yeah.
And so they're only, like Alf saying, they're only assuming the authority to write their own law. So we're writing our own law with authority to write it. And the government is making them, they're not even qualified. They're incompetent people that they put in high positions that they have no experience in what they're doing. And then as soon as they've done the damage, they resign and go and leave the mess behind. We're going after them. We're going after all of them. All of those politicians like Helen Clark, the whole lot of them. I got a picture of all of them and named the whole lot of them. They're going to get £1 trillion on their head. Whole lot of them. Because they stopped us in the foreshore seabed and stuck fake memorials on their titles. Yeah, that's what they used, fake memorials. Asserted Bill of Rights, I'll carry on going. Legality in times of emergency, assessing using response to COVID abstract. In response to COVID pandemic, New Zealand government has acted to restrict individuals' freedoms. The legality of the government's actions has been the subject of public attention and litigation in courts. So you spend more time going through courts to prove government is wrong, and they still go ahead anyway, because the government is a law higher than the courts. They're legislating that new law in the declaration, we'll get to that word later, declaration of inconsistencies and amended the inconsistencies that they caused, all the inconsistencies of their laws. They're getting out of it by putting that word inconsistencies in, and declaration. They're declaring that all that did wrong is okay. And they can wipe it out just like that. So we're going to pull them up in this court tonight about that statement, that they can't go ahead without our authority and consent, like it says, consent of the people of the land. They don't get the consent, they just go ahead. They just go ahead without people. Such as formal limitations requiring statutory authorization, protection of individuals' rights, and institutional safeguards. That's lawyers. They're not even listening to lawyers and judges and people that make law. They're not even listening to them. Against abuse, they are abusing law. They are abusing us, and they're abusing the law by making their own law and passing it in front of themselves. We then relate these challenges to timeless questions of legal theory. This is what I'm going after. Legal theory. If you look that up, you'll find lots more things wrong with them. And so, including questions about the subject of political power to legal rules. They're not even following legal rules. They're just breaking them as they go along. About the differences between mere pretense and robust commitments. They don't commit themselves to legality of what they write. This is the problem with them. And about the law's legitimate authority. They have no legitimate authority, and it's legitimate coercion. There's that word coercion again. So I've marked it. One day I'll split it out as citations and counts so that we can quote straight off, because there's no reference other than the page and what it's saying right here without splitting it out from the sentence. Focusing on questions most relevant to New Zealand context, we first examine the values associated with the authorization of government action by legal rules, and explain why a formal fixation of authorization is not enough. It's not enough to serve these values. They don't care. We then show how legality value in supporting law, authority, and guarding against illegitimate coercion depends on, at least in part, upon its even operation amidst and contextual and contested realities of exercise of public power. They're using too much. They've got, Jacinda Ardern's got too much power. She has too much power. So if you split all these words out, man, there's a lot going on. So we'll go past this because there's a lot of things in here that I make a sentence out of. They're just marking all the things they're doing wrong. All these things are underlined are worse. So we can go, this is for your reading, but this is all included against Jacinda Ardern. Every single thing I put red marks on and blue marks is offense, broken of crimes. So we can go past all this. That's just similar things. I want to get to the end bits. Well, hang on. Well, such reaction to emergency, we get into the emergency, is foreign to the normal order of legality. See, this legal bit, answering to a higher law of necessity, obeying Cicero's ancient adage, solus populi suprema lexo isto. It is at the heart of some traditional mechanism for dealing with emergencies, such as the Roman dictatorship, continental a sage, or the English institution of martial law. I'm getting to the martial law bit now. In the 20th century Western legal thought, the word again, this notion of emergency powers as inverse of rule, governor behavior was developed in the work of German jurist Carl Schmitt. Schmitt first identified the exercise of emergency powers with the broader notion of exception understood as a suspension of legal order in favor of a moment of unconstrained political decision. Cite here. So everything I put cite here is I cite these things here because of what and how they're making their emergency. It's for war, pandemic, and there's another one. There's three of them, but they're going after the pandemic as their excuse to have martial law at moments of threat of existence of the state. They are a threat.
Yeah, we need to discuss that, eh?
Yeah, so that's for another.
Martial law, the law of necessity.
So we'll have the next hearing with just these bits on these things to understand how we use the law.
Yeah.
The next hearing will be on understanding how we're going to tackle them and put them out of business with these laws. The use of emergency powers does away with that pretense. Declaring a state of emergency explicitly suspends the legal order in favor of sovereign. There's that word sovereign. They're acting sovereign over legal orders. Political action that is free from legal constraints, allowing sovereignty to take center stage. We are the sovereign to take center stage, unmasked. Moreover, the comprehensive nature of such an emergency demonstrates the conditional state of legality. We are legal in general, which applies even as a pretense only as long as it is not suspended by a sovereign power, cite here. So the Pope hasn't suspended what he put out in this order, but the government has no suspension on their sovereignty, but we have no suspension on our sovereignty to go over their sovereignty. So it's one sovereignty against the other sovereignty without any hooks attached to it. We just go straight to these laws and apply them without going through any precedent cases, because this is a brand new case. This is a brand new direction of New World Order. We're heading the New World Order off, and this WEF way of doing law today, not other cases, but the declaration, anything that's got the word declaration of inconsistent law, and amending it altogether to make it clear for them around to go and put their own law in.
So we can our next hearing we can deal with this, hey John.
We're going to have
this really we need to deal with this.
So
this law of necessity that they're trying to claim the rights to martial law. As I've mentioned, that I've requested 3 times from Andrew Little the International Maritime Contract to be placed into the evidence, because in law they cannot invoke martial law.
So that's
unless we the First Nations people are actually in breach of that contract.
So that's over here. That's over here to go Andrew Little head on as a sovereign of the land. So you're acting in your sovereign capacity to express a real fact law over his law and put them out of business. We're putting them out of business. That's all we are. We are a business. We're acting in this court as a business court, like their courts are business courts. So there, it's one jurisdiction over the other. So there, we just treat it and anything you say, Alfred, against one person, that's one, or Bloomfield or the other guy, all those guys that put this jab thing together and harm the people, and they're dying. I just heard more people, 38 more people are dead. You know, it's just happening, and they just using those statistics to prop up their right to carry on going, because that's how they do their research in a 2-year lapse period from 2020 to use their information to stake their claim to bringing in martial law. So we just crunched them. We crunched them with this and international law of the Pope and British law, to go over this New Zealand law. So there. So the marshals of the sheriffs and Gregory have to pick up on this. Pick up, read this word for word on how to interpret the law on our behalf, for our sake, to save the whole world and this country, if we apply it with confidence, we know what we're doing. And it's more to it. There's more things attached to what they're doing. There's too many angles they've got coming in from all directions. And one law is not going to fix it. You have to have lots of laws to fix it up. So they can't get away. Block them off. All that's in these 120 pages blocks them off from any escape from this court for conviction and charges put on the head. They're on a block. They're on a block that can't get out of it. They're not going to get out of it. All those people who retired and ran away, they were after them, like John Key. He's still got a writ warrant on his head. There's going to be busy. Sheriffs are going to be very busy chasing after people to recover all the debt that they stole and got away with up till now. And that's where we come in. Government to cope with an emergency on particular types such as war, pandemic, or natural disaster. These are the three types of emergency. These are the ones I was looking for. If you remember this war, they can have a war as their excuse for martial law, a pandemic, which is what they're going after, the pandemic, or natural disaster like earthquakes. So those three are the only times you have an act of state of emergency act in place to take control of the country over all the other laws of that country.
But would the first threshold be that they have to prove the clear title, John?
Yeah, that we're sovereign with the title.
With the title.
Yeah, we're sovereign. What's on here is we're claiming this whole country and individual titles over this country, over their title. They can't show us a title to the whole country.
So under international law, if they can't show clear title,
they've
got no lawful right to invoke martial law on someone else's territory.
Yeah, they're foreign.
Yeah, foreign.
They're foreign entity. We're an entity. Yeah. We're already an entity in the Vatican, and so that's our business there. Safe over there for now, while we tackle this government and put them out of business. That's all we're here for, to dissolve their business, bankrupt them. That's what this court hearing is about tonight. Straight to the jugular vein. Straight into Jacinda Ardern, whether she's pretty or ugly or whatever. It's her that's causing the damage.
Because they're foreign offshore companies, they've got no lawful right to invoke martial law because this is not their land.
No, they're doing it anyway if we don't stop them. They're doing it in here. You can see them doing it in here, in their 1990 Bill of Rights and the human rights. They're just changing the whole lot so that they can do what they want to do, and we're stopping them in their tracks from doing it. With this 128 pages, what's the successful governments have progressively moved New Zealand's emergency something of the from one which is
suspension.
shameful incidents of legally authorized suspension towards an approach which embraces a thicker conception of legal. See, that's word legality, respective validated and actions of officials, including magistrates. See, you got that word magistrates in there. They are liable too. All the courts acting. We are magistrate. We are magistrate going that magistrate. That's illegal. Acting illegal powers or relieve them from your cameras are in the road. Therefore, I can't read behind it. Civil or criminal liability. So they're criminals and they're liable. That's what that means. So that's why I put a big line underneath through to cite that. So I got there, cite here, in any case that we talk about now on the next video hearing, but to read and understand all the red bits, to apply them. There's your Health Act to go on. There's the Preparedness Act. These are all the things that they're doing. I pulled it out like this to cite them all the way through what they're doing against us with this pandemic. Preparedness Act. So we quote them on all these things that they're using against us and cite this. You see where I got cite this? So you read it, and understand it, and then apply it. Apply these against any individual, corporation, any company, any company in this country to take into court. Any company you think that a ordinary company that are fraudulent, operating fraudulent businesses. Other extraordinary powers to respond to pandemic are set out. So here we are, all Director General. There's that Director General to make orders requiring persons, and it's all this coercion stuff is in here. I've underlined. I read them, and put the underline it to refer to say picking the wrong things. So at first glance, these provisions are apparently narrow frame. So they're really uncertain. The government is uncertain of what they're doing. How should laws written, because they're not qualified to do law. How should laws written in anticipation and genuine emergencies such as Section 70, I can't see behind the videos on the right, should a court apply? So they're just experimenting with the law in here. They're experimenting with this with this COVID thing. They're using us like guinea pigs, and making laws up.
Without undergoing any clinical trials whatsoever.
Nothing.
We're just guinea pigs.
Yeah,
experimental guinea pigs.
Yeah, so that's why I underlined to catch them out. I put this here to catch them out in the fraud, doing the fraud. They're doing the fraud. All these red bits are doing the fraud. We caught them. We caught them committing fraud. That's all that is. So we can go them on any of that. In any court, if anybody goes to a court, they just need to quote those red bits and refer to the acts that they're violating. Just towards obligation of government to promote public health. They're not doing it for our public health. Recognized by international instruments, human rights in pandemic or role of allowing only reasonable rights. That not, you don't really get your rights. They call it reasonable rights, yielding to the greater good and accommodation of rights and others. So they're making it up as they go.
Yeah.
They're making all these things up as they go.
Yeah.
So we can throw all this book at them, and I'm only dealing with law here and reading into law like a mechanic. Act leaves intact the standing statutory regime for dealing with future emergencies, temporary. See, they have to go through the council, the government's council or committee before they can pass the law. So the council, the council won't answer the government and give them what they want. So the government just forgets them and carry on going. I read it like that. The Act has drawn criticism of the manner in which it was prepared and passed in urgency without meaningful consultation with Maori. There's Maori. They haven't properly consulted with Maori or parliamentary in public. I can't read the whole lot of it. But if you read that, and the Bill of Rights, it has attracted criticism. So the legal people are not happy with what the government is doing without their consultation or input into their acts that they're passing. And it makes it harder for the lawyers in courts to prove something when in fact it's not real law. The government hasn't got real law. Rule following, which is being focused, much confidence, not sufficient by itself. So their law is insufficient by itself. Legality also compromised. They're compromising the law and principle engaged in getting the rules right. See, getting the rules right. They're not getting the rules right. So we catch them out right there before they decide to pass their acts. So someone has to pick up on this and go to the government and write to the MP or whatever and tell them this is what's wrong with the government. They can't do this and that. Just use these 128 pages on Facebook. It's on there now. You can go down to the end of the page and press the blue button, and you'll find this there. So everybody can read it. When I come up there, see you, Gregory, we can run over these things again, and I'll get some input from you guys up there tonight. We're going at 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh, I have to stay up all night.
Yeah.
Blinkering, dynamic rules, blinkering government. See, they got their blinkers on. From
I forgot about that, John.
response.
Again, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there. So the law is on our side. The law here is on our side against this corrupt pirate government. So there we can go some more down, and I can't. All the photos of everybody on the Zoom tonight are on the right, so I can't read it. No, that's all right. That's all right. But you must read those red bits that I've carefully read the whole lot for us, for you, for everybody to look into it. What's really happening in Parliament, and so we have a good case here tonight. With here to save looking on for answers. It's all here. It's all there. Keep no one in check. There's nobody keeping them in check. We're keeping them in check. There's nobody doing it. There's nobody keeping the government in check. That's why they just keep going. If you put the pressure on them like this, then they can't move. If we got ourselves together and put something together, put a letter together to Jacinda, tell her we know what you're doing, it's wrong, you can't do it. Just tell her you can't do it because of these red bits, and drop the red bits in, and tell her we cite you for breaking the law, and before you start putting us in a bubble and telling us to stay in our homes, which is inhuman, and we want to go back to what we are before you came along with all this inconsistency stuff. We don't know where you're coming from before, we know now. Segments implied. So I can't read behind the camera, so I won't read it because it's all there. It's all there. Everything on that side of how they're legislating their martial law is right here. Raises key concerns about public power. They have too much power. So there, cite this as a threat over subjects, meaning you, the living man, woman. It's a threat. This is all a threat. The whole damn thing is a threat. All these words they put together are threats. So we're using the threat and catch them out, making the threats on us and put the threat back on them. You see? And put a pound note on them to finish things off and get rid of them. We can't get rid of them before they get rid of us. Take for the law to have legitimate authority. There we go. Legitimate authority in this context. Now we prove to ourselves we have authority. Yeah. We have more authority than them if we stick to it.
Yeah, by proof of clear title.
Yeah,
we have authority.
Clear title, but
and put the burden on them to prove their
for
their clear title.
So we just fight the law with the law.
Yep.
We just put these laws on their law.
Yep.
And pull them up. Some bits in blue, authorities with their own instances of rule-based authority. They got their own rules, authority, economic expertise, and localized knowledge and capacity. There's the treaty again, the treaty as well as questions of political equity. They're going right over the top of that. They're not listening to any treaty because they say, hey, we settled you, we've paid you out your claims, that's the end of you. That's how they talk. Very real limitations upon the ways in which the state and its law distrust amongst Maori born to illegal abuses. There's a lot of that going on. It's so that concern can shed further doubt on whether the pandemic response, I cite this, what they're saying. cite. So if you're doing a claim against Jacinda Ardern and her government, or any of the politicians, or any lawyer or judge, you just cite these things right here and stick it to them. You can cite as many things as you like, but they don't like too many citations. It's too much for them. It's just too much. They only like 1 or 2 spaces on their pages, so that there's not much stuff that you can trap them in. They don't like too many words. Yeah, cite this has not benefited Maori. All they're saying has not benefited Maori all these years. Cite this act consistent against hapu. So there's something about the hapu there. As hapu sovereign authority. So that's what you got to go as. Hapu sovereign authority. Like that first case I did tonight. You go as hapu sovereign authority. And then you can't go wrong if you stick to this lot. King's flag jurisdiction. So we use the flag as well. So that's got a lot to do with trade. That's our permission to go around the world. Once we get this off the ground, we can start trading around the world straight away. Here first, do the home first, get the home first, right first, before you go anywhere. I can't add commentary into points on these legitimate authority, Johnson, so you can quote all these things, and matters is beyond the scope of this work is contextual. This is people who put, these are recommendations to the government, what to do. They're telling the government what to do, because the government's dumb anyway, to pick laws like this fellow's brain that put this together. So it's recommendations to the government that they have to do something about it before they pass their martial law on you. They have to think about these things. They've been warned to follow the correct procedures of rule of law. So whether they do it or not is another thing, but we're going to pull them up on it. We're pulling them up on the law. If we know the law, if we know this, we know the law, just for this, just for what the government's doing to us right now. No other law for anything else, just this one for this pandemic, just this one, and no other influence from any other law that they can get away with. They can't get away with this one. According to the view of High Court in Borrowdale, the New Zealand government is beyond its rule prescribed competence. They're incompetent. See, they're beyond its rules prescribed competences for the first 9 days of first lockdown. So there were incompetent people running government in lockdown. See, so you cite this as courts are complicit in the scam fraud pandemic. I'm saying that out quite clearly. It's a scam. The whole pandemic gab thing is a scam on this video in front of the whole world tonight, that we are charging them in this court for fraud, treason against the country, and corruption of the legal system, the legal law system here, which is what we're supposed to be. They're supposed to be there following the law for us. They're not. Authority of the common law people and multi-appropriate sovereigns of the land. So that's what you are, sovereigns of the land. Everybody that's here, born here and living here legally. That I say legally. At least an ideal overlay, broad and intermediate use of statutory powers can be unchecked discretion. They're using unchecked discretionary powers of Parliament to make decisions as incompetent experts. They're not taking this expert's opinions of how the rules should be in Parliament. So there, he's just this expert here is telling them how to do their job. Examine whether imposed orders, authorized restrictions could be genuine exercise of legitimate authority. There's that word again. I'll cite this. Legitimate authority. That word, legitimate authority. Continued uncertainty government of no true constitution to make law. So they haven't got entrenched sovereignty entrenched constitution. They've only got a bandied up constitution. It's not worth the paper it's written on. It's really not a real constitution. The 1835 flag,
This
that
is a
flag,
statute.
this flag is
Yeah.
a British King Westminster Parliament Constitution 1835. So we're using that constitution over the government's constitution in this court tonight to shut them down. It may enable us to act together on the reason apply to us something. I can't see behind the photos there on the screen. On the contrary, in times of increased vulnerable, people are vulnerable and disruption. They're disrupting our life. Disruption. Those two words, vulnerability and disruption, is important as ever to adhere to the principle of legality and demanding something. I can't see the other words. Adherence from those who wield public power. They're wielding public power over us, of the public. Cite this as planned disruption. They're planning this pandemic as a planned disruption of our lives. So therefore, no apparent proven reason of pandemic man-made viruses in a lab. That's what I wrote there to cite them on that. It's a man-made in the lab. Where's Fauci? Where's Anthony Fauci? He's gone. He's fizzled into thin air. Gone. Done his damage and gone. See, so that's how that's inconsistency of powers of making this jab. That's the enemy of us here and the world. So now we can catch them and do something about it. Principle must be upheld with instant government action, not simply entrusted to governments themselves. Institution, that means lawyers, judges, they're not involved in what the government is doing. I've read this out, that they don't listen to judges and lawyers and people that who trying to tell the government they can't do that. And just the government says, oh, you can sort it out in court. So you go to court and the judge throws it out or passes it and does something government, but not entirely put the government out, because they're thugs too. They won't go against the government in their courts. That's where they make their money. Cite this coercive force of parliament law, not court institutionalized, which is highly illegal on parliament making radical, incompetent laws, then quit the job and leave a mess is historic of the government. They've been doing this for a long time. Abhorrent. They've been doing this for a long time. 187 years since that flag's been around. And no one's done anything about it. No, until now. The safety of people ought to be the highest law. Something. And there is voluminous complementary literature exploring the significance. Legal theory. So there's a lot of stuff on legal to pick up on from this German guy, Schmidt, and his contemporaries were embroiled in discussions surrounding. So I had a bit of a read on that, but it still comes down to what the government can use. So we can quote things from here in anything against the government, but we're sticking it all in place, one place to shut them down, one shot. In all of this is one affidavit. All this lot of 128 pages is one affidavit of truth. So everything in here is the truth, as far as I'm concerned. And everybody who is on this jury has to make their mind up and decide that's what we're saying is true, is law. We say it's true tonight. It means it's law that we have in this court. And we stick by that from this day on, and all the other 9 or so court hearings we had is all law. We make law, like the Pope said, you're on your own. So keep going. That's just along now. We can skip. What's this? Agreement of another minister written recommendations, Defense Emergency Management Act. So you can cite all this lot, which requires Parliament. We haven't got much time left. So really, I'm going straight to the guts of it to go and not spend too much time on one or two things, but just stick them all together and shoot them with one bullet. Yeah,
Yeah.
not muck around
That's right.
picking one off or picking another one off.
Yeah.
We're
Just one
David, they're Goliath.
One big bullet.
Yeah, one big bullet, political bullet
Yeah.
or legal bullet.
A bulletproof one.
Yeah, legal bullet. Matters authors. This is the author put this all together. So these are all references here. You can look up on where this expert author got all his information out of all this lot. There's pages of it. I'll put them all in there so anybody can go and look at them to find where he got all his information from. Rule of law, see? Rule of law, instrument, moral value of rule of law, reconsideration law and philosophy. They don't care. These World Economic Forum people don't care because they've got all the money that we're going after. We're going after every scrap and bit of it, 100% or more, not 1% treaty settlements. That's for anybody who's already written their contract and accepted the contract. Your contract is over with Britain, as far as Britain's concerned. You've settled with this lot here. That's to be blunt. If you don't know commercial law or this stuff, if you have to make time. You have to make time to learn quickly how to tackle the beast. Martial law unable to be accessed by most New Zealanders. Strictly Orbiter, uncensored December 20th, 2020. So you can't get to all this information here. New Zealand's ability to access military justice is under threat. There's a word threat. Military justice is under threat. They're going right over the military justice and the martial law, martial courts of military. They're going right past it. It's under threat. They're under threat by Jacinda and this WEF, NATO, UN, EU, World Health Organization, and the Congress in America on top of it all, leading all the scam. According to the new Law Foundation back study released today, decade of underfunding, because that's where the government here, I think they got about a few million, a lot of money to pay for all the people. You'll see the list of people coming up soon of who they're funding, all the people who are going to come and take you out of your house and lock you up or take your property off you, take your kids off you, seize all your things in your house. They're down here at the bottom, all the people, police and all. We'll get to it yet. I'm trying to get through to get to it. The study found credible and effective military justice depends on funding. So the money. Our research has shown cost of summary trial attendant executive squad is now unaffordable for anyone earning less than 125,000 a year. Research carry on going. Meanwhile, figures show the simplest of proceedings likely to take over 15 months. So they need money. Jacinda Ardern made a big overdraft of money for the military here, and all these people coming up to go and into every home and force jab you. That's coming up. That's what I'm heading off here, and we are heading off. Keep going. Warning sign. What's this? Number of personnel needed to administer system of military justice. 12,000. They need 12,000 people to carry out this pandemic martial law, to come into your home and force jab you and take all your property. Director of University of Otago Legal Issues Centre said the findings were unsurprising. Events such as this year's alert level 4 lockdown have shown us the tremendous something and civil service to adapt to unprecedented circumstances and produce comprehensive something emergency response at short notice. However, the study shows that the potential something armed forces to receive the result has severely degraded by years something missions disaster relief. So they've got the money now. Jacinda Ardern has illegally got the money to come after you, and we're going to stop them. We're going to stop them with this law, right in their tracks. They can't do that to us. They can't. Keep going. What's this? Oh, keep going. what's this? Epitome of documents relative to native affairs and land. Oh, these are just land purchases. Keep going, roll by. Well, no, keep going. Those are just land. Some information of the land. Declaration of here. Declaration of Inconsistencies Amendment Bill. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. Bill seeks to create statutory mechanisms and bring in declaration. The word declaration. This is what they have. They have to make this through Parliament and pass this word declarations of what they're doing to make it legal. And I'm saying it's not legal to make a declaration over us. Inconsistency to attention of the House of Representatives. So the government have to put things together and put into the House of Representatives to get the permission to enforce their laws and acts. And if the House of Representatives agrees, then the Parliament can go ahead with what they're doing. But they're going to try and get around going to the House of Representatives, because I read into that as well. And with the aim of facilitating consideration of judiciary's declarations by a legislator, they're going straight past the judiciary system, lawyers, judges, and they're going straight past this House of Representatives. They don't want to get a no answer from the House of Representatives. That this is Jacinda and her WF young people in Parliament. They want to push this thing through by force. The bill as introduced would create only a mechanical requirement for the Attorney General. So the Attorney General has to have his signature on the documents. So he's another one liable to give the government the go ahead with the pandemic. Report a declaration to Parliament. So their declaration has to be passed in Parliament, and it has to go to the House, the executive branch, to get their permission. That's the Crown of Britain, the executive, to get their permission to pass these laws. I cite here as a declaration of war on the sovereign people of the land. Here, right here, where New Zealand Parliament is not the true sovereign, but Pope Francis multi propria orders over New Zealand Parliament sovereignty. So I'm using this, citing this part of that bill against the government here. Declaration within 6 months. Yeah, so you have to make a statement of fact to be effective on what they're doing and catch them. We're catching them doing this by splitting this up like this. And this is, look, how they write. This is not my writing. That's their writing, like declaration like that. And that what that means, I don't know. Declaration is made under Human Rights Act. So this has been split out by these experts to give some meaning into what is actually going on with the government. So we get it is unambiguous statement from the senior court or tribunal that the law of New Zealand infringes upon people's protected rights. So in a manner that cannot be demonstrated to be justified, can't be justified. They can't justify, the government can't justify their inconsistency, their declaration of inconsistency, the amendment bill. They're amending all the laws of the Bill of Rights and Human Rights Act. They're amending the whole lot so they can push their own law through. And we catch them right there. So given that the Bill of Rights requires courts to give legislation and rights consistent interpretation, if one is available, if that word if, such declarations will not be made lightly. It is vital branches of government responsible for making law, administrating them, does something, and executive branch of respecting are both seen by the public. The public's not seeing this and do in fact something in declaration properly. They're not doing it properly. That's why I'm underlining it. They're not following law. They're law under themselves. That's important here. So lots of strings that they're breaking of law. Lots of it. Those are the worst ones out of the whole thing. We recommend a change in Section A of the Bill of Rights Act and the new section of the Human Rights Act to clarify that the Attorney General must notify rather than represent or something Parliament. See, they only go under report something, and it's behind the photo why I can't read it. No, they must notify to report to Parliament. See, so they're skipping steps in law. We see the Attorney General's role here as being to bring the declaration into the House, consideration rather than reporting substantially on the declaration. New Zealand something, New Zealand Bill of Rights, declarations of inconsistency, amendment bill, commentary, requirement for government to respond. So we recommend that the bill be amended to require the government to respond to the declaration of inconsistency. They won't respond. That's what this guy is trying to say. This requirement would be contained in the new Section 7B of the Bill of Rights Act and new Sections 92 WB of the Human Rights Act. So they've written it out in their amendment bill. I've been right through it. The intent of this requirement is to ensure that the declaration and the issues they raise are given due consideration by the executive branch. So it's got to go through the executive branch and are responded to publicly. It's got to be made public what they're doing. They're not letting anybody know what they're doing. We call them right there. We're catching them with these red bits. The Human Rights Act currently requires the government to respond to a declaration of inconsistency made under the Act of Bill, which would remove. Our recommended amendment would see that remove something. I didn't see the current requirement replaced with requirement replaced inclusion of the Bill of Rights. So anyhow, those are quotes this Rights Act 92 WB and the Human Rights Act. Those things there. If you spend too much time on it, it'll be all over. They're getting away with it. There's not much time to do anything or to dwell on any of these, but to hit them with one shot, the whole one affidavit shot, and say it's all in this one affidavit and video law, and that's us, our statement of claim against Jacinda Ardern, pirate on the high sea tonight. So there, carry on going. There's a bit of reading. I skipped through all that lot and picked out just these ones. The House proceeds are regulated by its permanent rules and standing orders. They are appropriately regarded as constitutional rules for the exercise of significant public power. Cite this constitution. They have no constitution to make these laws that they're doing in here. We note that the regular review of the standing orders will also provide opportunities to adjust the House procedure to consider. So that's just explaining the declaration of what they're doing. So our flag is a declaration of independence. What does independent mean? We're on our own independent selves.
Yeah, we're not subject to them.
Yeah, we're not subject to anybody or Jacinda Ardern or the government. We just have to take it and turning them into liquidating them into cash straight away. This is what this is all about tonight. So there, we can carry on going. Rule 3 would specify the notice presented to the Attorney General. We can carry on going. You can read all the red bits. We'll just move on. We won't go through them because it's still a bit more to go through. But they're really bad ones. Make findings directly address. Yeah. Keep going. Just roll on. We all that's still the same inconsistency. So we can keep going. Those are all the acts and things you can quote off. Just gone past. Keep going. There's plenty to quote on. Keep going. Amendment bills, part 2, C's, and all the rest. So pandemic made virus. Pass and keep going. Not qualified and resigning. Now keep going. Keep rolling it. The notice and orders. Information of notice and orders issued the government. There's some more things I'm saying as incompetent. You're charged in this Native Magistrate Court today, 21st of July 2022, for illegal enforcement officers breaking multi-propria orders of Pope Francis. So there, a pandemic is a fraud planned criminal organization with no lawful authority to enforce a state of emergency or a virus that UWEF thugs created in a lab that is murdering populations illegally to exterminate innocent sovereign people suffering harm, loss, injury, which is the Pope say have the right to use, enforce adequate laws to save ourselves from these thugs. Yeah, I can't read what's behind the photo. That's all right. Bill, that's all right. Carry on. Sesquive Trust is over there. So that's us. These are just some of the things that we just Sesquive Trust works. Here we go. What's this? Enforcement officers under. Here we get into the enforcement part now. The Director General may authorize suitably qualified, not really qualified, and trained individual to carry out any powers. See, they're using these sort of people as enforcement officers under Section 18 of the COVID-19 Public Health Response Act 2020. The Director General has currently authorized 3 classes of persons as enforcement officers. These classes of people are WorkSafe inspectors, aviation security officers, custom officers, members of the armed forces, COVID-19 enforcement officers, maritime border. So those ones up north, those Maoris up north, they were enforcement officers on the maritime border. They used that over the whole country as a model for their plan. And instead of going right through the whole country, they just did one little area and blocked it all off with the traffic stops and everything to make it go right over the whole country as their authority, which is illegal. It's illegal what they did. The authorization described the class of people that are authorized as enforcement officers. They're making enforcement officers out of these people. Could be anybody. Powers available under COVID-19 Public Health Response Act. So they're using another act here that they may exercise functions which they may carry out. Authorization of customs officers, enforcement officers for pre-departure testing, vaccination, travel pass, and so on. So there we go. Authorizing officers, police officers, health trainee officers, health trainee people to enforce their law. These people are heathens. They are really bad people putting trainees to enforce their laws. Custom officers, they got 38 million or more than that for to pay everybody. I think they got something on billions. Authorization customs officers. These are all the people who are coming after you in your house. 20, I forget how many, 20,000 of them or something, 12,000 or 20,000. No, I had the figure there before. Members of the armed forces, members of assistant custom officers, supervising custom officers, COVID-19 officers, enforcement officers. This is all for this COVID. All these people have got no experience in COVID, don't even know about it, what it's causing, and there they are as officers, making them officers. This is illegal. WorkSafe inspectors, aviation security officers. We're going to put £1 trillion on anybody tonight. Anybody who's going to do this job for Jacinda Ardern's government and any other government coming after them. You got £1 trillion on your head tonight. Bounty, lien over your property and everything you own. If you're going to go ahead with this law and sign contracts. We are contract people here. We deal in commercial contracts under this flag, contract flag. The 1834, 1835 contract flag, commercial. COVID, public health response, point of care tests. They can test you in your house and come in and jab you under this order, 2021, corrigendum, revocation and replacement authorizations and exemption care test. Exemption for something care test. Notice that means they can go exempt themselves from anything you've got that prevents you from getting the jab. They'll just say they're exempt from that and just give you the jab. Notice of authorization for expanding import supply of distribution. They're distributing drugs on you that are harmful and dangerous. That's what they're importing all this stuff and paying all your millions of dollars of taxpayers' money. We'll get all that back with a pound note on all that lot. Everything with a lien right up top of them. Revocation and replacement authority of person to import, supply, distribute, point of care tests. All that money wasted. All that money wasted on this germ of a virus that's man-made. And the man who did all this damage has disappeared in thin air. Dr. Anthony Fauci has disappeared. He's got more trillions, 100 trillion on his head. Plenty of that going to go on. Rapid tests, we can skip past that. Those are all the things they're allowed to do.
The worst one is old Bill Gates.
Yeah, Bill Gates as well. He's got
got
100
one.
trillion on his head. His name is down on the list. So you have to name them. You have to name them without getting shot down yourself. So everybody that's following this is supporting this against Bill Gates and his regime to exterminate 5 billion people in the world or more. He's saying there are too many people in the world, and he wants to get rid of them. Who emergency use vitro diagnostics? Carry on. I'm just reading. The European application positive supply. Those are just things I didn't make note for. And just went straight past them. New Zealand Ministry of Health application for approval of the POCT device, point of care test evaluation check. So carry on. That's just something of point of interest. The red bits are the ones, they're the serious ones that are going to harm you forever. Some more. So all you unvaxxed people like me, this is threat on us. And else. So all those blue bits are of concern. Here, what's this? Red bit. Threats by Jacinda Ardern public statements against Pope's living sovereign rule. So she's promoting this extermination on our land. That's what we don't like. We don't like what she's doing on these land.
Yeah.
It's not her land. Treason on the sovereign people of New Zealand, Pope Francis sovereign. Contrary to, no, we've been through that. We can skip past this. I'll put the pages down. All these red bits with page 87 is from those expert author that wrote it up. And page 87, all these red bits are just coalition and everything that the government is doing. We're catching them doing all this bit in red that this advisor told the government some way they're breaking rules of law and without putting statute action. These are real law. So these are all the bits that are pulled out and cited them. See, I've got cite this, cite everything with cite this is what we're using in these affidavits tonight on this video affidavit. Everything would cite this as courts are complicit in the scam fraud pandemic. We're saying the government is a scam fraud pandemic right here on this video. Cite this as a threat against the King's flag, that flag, sovereign authority, comes something, law people and multi-proprietary sovereigns, birth title of the native land, something. Yeah, so those are statements are making in bold and shouting to them. Uncertainty, government of no constitution. Examine whether imposed orders, restrictions, general exercise of legitimate authority. See that word pops up all the time. Legitimate authority. They have no legitimacy or authority to make laws. They're not supposed to be there making corporate company laws on you who voted to put them there. That's treason against the people. So there, all those pages, statements, I picked these out and put them there to cite them, separated from the author's expert recommendations to the government. That German Smith guy is talking a lot of legal.
That's the one doing that common law cases.
I don't know.
International.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
The Smith guy, that's this expert is taking all his thesis and things about law.
Okay.
So that's all that is. The law. Proclamation of martial law. Here we go. This is getting towards the end. Proclamation of martial law by His Excellency. This is just a case that was done under martial law with the earthquake or something like that, war or earthquake. So we can skip past this. Where's the military? That's when the military took over legally, because it was a real event. This event that's happening with the pandemic, it's not real. It's not natural occurring. It's just being made up and led to believe a lie of something that is being manufactured to kill people. So you cite this as a declaration of war on the sovereign people of the land. So there you are the sovereign. The Pope is holding your sovereign wealth, which is worth 100 million as far as this other expert in America is concerned. And I'm saying you're worth 1 trillion, right at the top end.
Yeah, David Straight's figures are very low.
Yeah, David
It's
Strait.
it's in the billions. It's not
Yeah.
million.
So David Strait is saying your birth certificate today
Yeah.
is worth 100 million, and it was 1 million in the first beginning of
Yeah.
time.
In the beginning.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's
In the
that's
billions now.
yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I've gone for the high end of everything.
Yep.
It's up to the Crown to challenge what I'm saying. Otherwise, it's section law. What's there? 970 million trillion pound lien mortgage over their heads. The Crown, the Pope, the whole lot of the scamdemic stuff that's going on here, right in front of your eyes on this video, right in front of the world, witnessing what we're doing here as a confederation of chiefs and sheriffs to do something by the law. The law is here for us to enforce and use, and that's exactly what we're going to do here with Jacinda Ardern and Cook Street, and this other case we have with Gerard Bogart and Cecile Hoods and their hapu. That'll be the first hapu claim on this court. Murder, competing politicians are not qualified and resigning when the damage has been done as a criminal intent of these out-of-order pirates operating dangerous health procedures that harm the communities dying all around. So there, this is our statement we're making in these capital letters against Jacinda Ardern and her criminal organization in government. Notice the principal is notice to the agent. Notice the agent is notice to the principal. Pope Francis and Surrogate King John Wanoa, President of the Confederation of Chiefs, and our contract partner, British Navy, Admiral of the Fleet, Michael Boyce, Westminster Parliament, Crown King William IV sovereign authority jurisdiction over New Zealand, non-sovereign government of New Zealand lawless, incompetent, liable, named, photographed politicians and something, these CVID, contracted officers, police, military, pandemic, scam, conspiracy theorists or something, pirates acting in their own corporate business, financial investment interests, banks. So they're only acting for them, not for you. Kate Laurel, Jacinda Kate Laurel Ardern, the living, breathing woman in your flesh and blood, you are charged in this native magistrate King's Bench Court today, 21st of July, 2022, for illegal enforcement officers breaking mortal property orders of Pope Francis, and your pandemic is a fraud plan, criminal organization with no lawful authority to enforce a state of emergency of a virus that you, WEF, have created in a lab that is murdering populations illegally to exterminate innocent sovereign people suffering harm, loss, injury, which the Pope say we have the right to use, enforce adequate laws to save ourselves from you thugs. I can't see those other words, so I just put thugs there. That's a good word. That's a real word of who they are, really are. So you talk thug language to them, and see if they'll understand what you're talking about.
That's what I do.
Call them everything that they are, and make a statement about it. So, in advance of your illegal or lockdown and fraud, pandemic, parliamentary fraud, sovereign, and post-sovereign legal ownership says to give you trust people. So the people, sovereign, versus Jacinda Ardern here in this court hearing tonight. And so cite all these people here. I'll just put them down again to doubly make sure that the Director General and all his people here are liable now and charged and convicted of crimes of church and state and humanity in this court today with treason. Just one word for the whole lot of them, treason. There, that covers fraud and corruption and everything in one shot. So there they are, all this lot. I've just pulled them out again from the main lot and put them here. And that's the end of that. Is that the end of the page, Andy? Yep, we've come to the end of it. So, people, that's the end of the court hearing tonight of Jacinda Ardern and her arrest, imminent arrest for treason. One word, treason case, and the government and everybody complicit with her treason against the sovereign people of the land. There, finished. That's the end of the court hearing tonight. I must say, we can have a discussion now, or if Alfred wants to add to it before we shut it. You got something to say, Alfred?
Put the questions, you see what they got first. Hey, John?
In case they alter it.
Yeah.
No, I don't want it altered. That's why I want to shut the case, or I'll leave it open for the executive or the people, the people on the jury to answer questions. But I don't want anybody else involved in the court hearing, Andy. That's why I shut it off from anybody having a say, because it's on the record. If someone says something against what I've just said, this is law now. That's why I want you to shut it right now. I don't want anybody added from outside our jury to add something to what we've put down in law tonight. So you can talk about it after. We can open the court up again if there was something serious enough to consider against what we have already said. There's enough said here without adding to it or altering anything. I don't want anybody to alter anything on these 128 pages or do anything to jeopardize it. So there, we'll shut it for now, have a discussion. We can reopen it.
So I'll end the recording of the court hearing now then. Yeah, on the recording, and we'll carry on the live. Is that what you mean? Yeah. So I'll end this recording now. So the time now is 11:42. So that will be 8:42 in New Zealand, and it's the 21st of July, Thursday, the 21st of July, 2022. So I'll end this hearing now. So I'll stop the recording.